Okay, this video is for those of you that are having difficulty getting any sort of curve within your image. And what I'm going to do here real fast is I'm going to change this particular font over to a different one. Let's see, one I've been using. Of course, it doesn't remember. Let's do this again. All right, what I'm going to do is show you all how to get a nice curve out of your lettering. So some of the letters like the D and the R are a little bit more difficult to get the rounding depending on what kind of font you have. So let's start off with this D down here. This is a different font than the one used for the R. I already have my horizon line and my vanishing point set up. So I'm just going to go in here and create a blank new layer. And this is going to be my first set of colors. I'm going to turn it as red so we can see it pretty easily. I'm going to use a pixel size of 2, not 32, just 2. And I'm going to start by grabbing the easy points to see. So the hard edges, so there. And there's a mysterious hard edge right about there on the top of that D. And my last one I'm going to put somewhere at the lower section. I think that looks pretty nice right about here at this intersecting point. If you bring it up a little bit higher, it could look a little skewed. If you bring it a little bit lower, it could look a little bit off as well. So you can just kind of control Z just to figure out where you want that exactly. Now, what I'm going to do too is I'm going to bring down my stopping point. So this is where I want that flat line to occur and then the curve to kind of happen. So if I were to actually, freehand this and make it look terrible, it would go here and then it would have that nice curve to it, or maybe it would look like this and then that, and that looks absolutely horrid. So we want to get something that looks a little bit better. So I'm going to go to my D letter here. And on that layer, I'm going to click and drag it, and I'm going to place it over the new layer icon, and it becomes D copy. You can also click on this and click Control J or Command J, and it will also duplicate. Either of those ways works just fine. Once we have our text copy here, I'm going to double click in the space right here. Double click, and that will bring up our layer styles. Once we have our layer styles, we want to check the stroke tab and then select this space right here. Okay. Make sure that your pixels are the same as your brush. So they should be at 2 for me. You may be at 5, at 3, who knows, but just double check, make sure those are the same. Make sure you are on the outside position, normal blend mode, the same color that you're using for the brush. So for me, just red. And the opacity should be at 100. And I'm going to click OK. Now here's where it gets a little bit challenging. We got to make sure you have a D and a D copy. I'm going to take this new letter, so I grab the move tool, new letter, and I'm going to bring it right here. So right in the intersecting area, and I'm going to click the transform tool. If you're using Photoshop, you can hit Command T or Control T. It'll do the same thing. And I'm going to shrink this down by holding Shift only if you're using Photopea. If you're using Photoshop, you don't have to hold Shift. And I'm going to drop that in there. I'm going to zoom in with Control or Command plus and just make sure those lines all match up and hit the check mark. That looks really good. So I'm going to turn the transform controls off. That looks fantastic. Now here's where it gets a little bit more difficult. We want to take this letter and we need to rasterize this layer. So I'm going to right click on this open space on D copy, and I'm going to hit rasterize layer, or sorry, it says rasterize. Yeah, that'll work just fine. You can see that it still says EFF. That's not what I want, so I need to rasterize layer style. All right, there we go. That makes this all one object. Now here's where it also gets a little tricky. We want to take out the black that is in the middle there. So I'm going to grab my magic wand and select in this center. If our tolerances are still set at 16 and I go to select this area, there's a good chance that some of the black may still stay there. If that's the case, bring that tolerance up a little bit, maybe 32, maybe 50, maybe 100, and just retry it. So I've got it selected there. I'm going to hit delete, and Control or Command D will deselect. And that looks great. That actually looks really good. So now's the fun part. Now we just go in with our eraser and we just clean up any of the lines that we don't need. So we don't need this stuff. We don't need that. We don't need this. And we don't need that. And here's what else is really cool. Since this line right here actually goes through, we could add that line right here. Okay, so these are the lines that we still have. We need to get rid of some of those. So I've switched back, and I'm just going to erase really quick. Erase those. We don't need that. That looks great. And that looks great too. Sweet. Now we do need this line right here, so I would just take my brush, and I'm going to zoom out. The convenient thing is that this line, so click and shift click, while it does go through this tube, normally we'd be worried about erasing this right here and affecting that line, but since we did them all on their own layer, no worries there. All right, you can rewatch this portion, or I'll do another one on the R really fast in that regard. So I'm just gonna group these really quick. So that's my D folder, and this will be my R. So I'm gonna do this R really fast. It's just same techniques going on.